For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for its analysis of USC's 72-70 loss to Colorado in the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament. Shotgun, there's a lot to take away from this game. I guess, first off, what are your overall takeaways?
I mean, wow, fantastic basketball game, especially in the second half. Some really high level basketball being played by both teams, a ton of shot making going on. There was some quality defense, and both teams were still making a ton of shots in that game. There were several times I was just shaking my head, a little bit disbelief at some of the shots that were being made and the consistency of some of those shots, especially in that second half. USC started off slow and that cost them. But I think that's kind of a telling thing that this is March. This is what happens if you don't play a full 40 minutes. You can go home. And that's what's happening to USC. If you don't take care of each category on the stat sheet, USC struggled a little bit with rebounding. They played some zone defense. They will go home because of that, because they lost the rebounding advantage by 8. They gave up 11 second chance points off of 15 offensive rebounds. If you don't take care of your free throws, they were 6 of 12. They lost by 2 points. Just all these small things, and that's all it takes in March to send you home. And I think it's a good lesson for them if they want to try to do some damage next week's NCAA tournament, is that you have to start from the beginning. You can't have a slow start. Tajidi said that as well. He said, we've had some slow starts. This isn't the first time. They have to be ready to go from the get-go, and you can't have long lulls. They went almost 8 minutes without a field goal early in that game, and it ended up costing them the game in this one because they rallied, they fought back, they tied up in the final minute, and then Colorado gets the game winner with about 3 seconds left. So, it was a very fun game, back and forth late in the game with a couple of big runs from each team, and USC gets all the way back only to have their hearts broken at the buzzer. USC just can't get over the hump against Colorado right now.
Yeah, let's go into more detail about that dramatic finish. I know Andy Enfield had some comments about it in his post-game presser. What did you see from the arena, Shotgun?
Yeah, the final minute. I mean, Tajidi, it's an old-fashioned three-point play. He scored 11 points in the final 3:37. It's the only points he scored in the game, but he got hot at the end and carried USC back when they were down by 12 points. Late in the game, it seemed like the game was over. USC goes to Edey. He puts in a couple buckets. He gets an old-fashioned three-point play, gets fouled, gets the bucket with a driving runner off the window, makes the free throw, ties the game up. USC has been fighting back the entire game, finally ties it. They go and they have a great defensive possession, actually. McKinley Wright, they hold the ball to take the final shot, and McKinley Wright shoots it up over Evan Mobley after a switch. Good defense there. He misses the shot, but because there was a switch there was a free guy coming, for the rebound. They get a putback slam to take the lead. There's a timeout called. USC draws up a very nice play. I really liked it. They threw the ball to Evan Mobley at half court. He turns and tries to lob it over to Tajidi, who was streaking up the right side, potentially get a jump shot, a 2-pointer, 3-pointer to tie the game or to even win it. And instead, McKinley Wright, basically played it like a cornerback on this play. He's tracing him, he's following Tajidi, and he looks and sees when his eyes look up like a wide receiver would look up to go get the ball, throws his hands up and deflects the ball. And then, Colorado was able to get it. That entire time while Colorado was scrambling to get the ball, Tajidi's flying out of bounds because, McKinley Wright got a little push on him in the back, and Andy Enfield was going berserk on the sideline trying to get a call there. He did not get it. After the game, he said, it's right in front of our bench, and Tajidi gets pushed in the back by McKinley Wright. That's the game. There's no foul called, and if there was, then he would have went to the line, would have had an opportunity to even the score from the free throw line. Instead, there was not one there, and that was kind of telling of the entire game. Yesterday, there were 55 fouls called. Now it was double overtime, but in the second half alone, there were 26 fouls called. This game, there were 24 fouls called in the entire game. It just shows again the inconsistency of Pac-12 officiating, football, basketball, every sport. There shouldn't be a game with a team that's much more physical, Colorado is, than Utah. And it was a game where both teams battled and banged a lot, and there just weren't fouls called, when yesterday everything seemed to be called. Now, I don't mind either way the refs calling the games, but just stick with one of them. And that's I think that's one of the biggest issues is in the Pac-12 for the head coaches is there's no consistency there. And in this one, Andy, especially with that play being right in front of him, he sees Tajidi go flying into the USC bench. Even though they're socially distanced and away from the court, the players had to catch him as he was running out of bounds after the little bit of push in the back there. So he was not happy with that. And I know I tweeted it out, and I know I haven't even looked at my replies, but I know there's been a lot of responses to people, chiming in with their opinions on it and their opinions on infield saying something about it. So, that was how the game kind of concluded. It was dramatic final finish there, but I liked the play that was drawn up. It just didn't work out for USC. They weren't able to get that final shot off.
Now, before we hit record, Shotgun, you and I were talking about this game. You had both negatives and positives from the game. Let's first start with the negatives. What concerns you about this team after seeing this performance?
Yeah, looking forward to their potential in the NCAA tournament. I saw some positive things that make you think, yeah, they can go and run. Saw some negative things, and that's kind of been this team all year, unfortunately, is that, it's been kind of up and down there. You're really concerned about the slow start. It was back-to-back games that they started slow in a tournament setting. You can't come out flat in the NCAA tournament. You can't do it. I mean, Tajidi talked about how this has happened to us before. They've got older guys on the team. They need to come out and they need to have some energy early and find a way to get in the lane and get an easy bucket. That was the thing. They were shooting a lot of jump shots early in the game. Evan Mobley was carrying the team in the first half for a good portion of it before everyone else started going, and he was still having to hit some jumpers too. Colorado's playing some really good defense, but they got to take care of the ball. They had 8 turnovers in their first 10 minutes or so of the game. They only had 11 for the entire game. So, if they took care of the ball in that period, they played a little bit better in that period, that's a 2-point difference. And that's what I'm talking about. In March, one bad period can kill you, and it can be the difference in a win or in advancing or going home and your season being over. So they got to do better with the slow starts. They lost the rebounding margin in this game. When they lose the rebounding margin, they basically lose during the season. Now, part of the reason they lost the rebounding margin in this was because they went to a zone defense, and it really stymied Colorado, late in the second half. So I give them credit for making that. It's just you got to be able to find guys and go attack the rebounds a little bit better when you go to that zone defense. So they've got to win the rebounding margin. That's a big thing for them. When they don't, they really struggle, and they need a consistent third scorer. I mean, that's a big issue for them. When they don't have 3 or more guys score in double figures, they're 3-7 this season. Guess what they are when they have at least 3 guys score in double figures? 19-0. It seemed like, what? I know Evan's got 20 points, and I know Taj has got 11. Let's find somebody else, because the math will work out that we'll win this game. Just start force-feeding Chavez Goodwin or whoever it has to be. That a little bit being facetious there, but you got to find someone else has got to step up and make some shots. Now, everyone shot really well. After that slow start, they shot 63% as a team. But they need someone to consistently make a couple shots. Isaiah Mobley is a guy, if he makes a couple more layups, a couple more shots down low, would be in double figures almost every game. This game, he knocked down 2 threes again, back-to-back games, knocking down 2 threes. That's a very positive sign for them, but he's got to make a couple down low as well. He was 1 for 5 on 2-pointers. And if he makes one more of those, he's in double figures. So that's what they need. They need people to take that little extra 10% step in the postseason. Someone has to step up, and maybe someone steps up and has a big game, but everyone, if they step up a little bit and make one more shot in the game, USC could do some damage. And
now for the positive, Shotguns, what were the good things you took away from this game?
Evan, from the Pac-12 tournament, my positives coming out of it is Evan Mobley being more aggressive, more assertive. He shot 15 shots in the first 24 minutes or so of this game. Now, Colorado switched their defense and was trying to force someone else to beat them because Evan Mobley had 23 points through that first 24 minutes of the game. And he only had 3 points the rest of the game, which isn't a bad thing because everyone else was stepping up and making some shots too. USC, went on, that's when they were able to make a run. So if teams try to say, okay, you got to beat us and we're going to guard Tajidi really tightly. We're not going to give any space. We're not going to double off of him. We're going to guard Drew Peterson. We're going to have 2 people there so he can't get in the lane, but we're not coming off. We're not going to, we're going to single cover Evan Mobley. He's showing that he can take over that game. And that's something he hadn't necessarily done this season, is even when he had the opportunity, he wasn't necessarily taking over the game. Back-to-back, tying his career high, 26 points. He had 9 rebounds and 5 blocks, so he's doing it on both ends. This is after playing, in a double overtime game yesterday. He plays 39 minutes tonight. There were times when you could see that he was a little bit tired, a little bit winded, but you never could – it was in between plays. You never could see during plays. He wasn't, slow to get up the court or anything. He was fantastic in this tournament. He might win Pac-12 Player of the Tournament because he was fantastic in these 2 games. But usually that goes to one of the teams that plays in the finals. We'll see, if McKinley Wright doesn't play very well, maybe he does still. But he was fantastic this weekend, and that's a really good sign going forward. He showed his assertiveness, and you kind of are a little bit disappointed this hasn't happened earlier in the season. There were flashes of it. He was great this weekend. If he continues that next weekend, USC's got a great chance. As Earl Watson said on the Pac-12 network, if you have a unicorn, anything can happen. And Evan Mobley is that unicorn. He just affects the game in so many ways, offensively, defensively. So that's a big positive. The fact that they shot 47% from threes, really good sign. And that's even when they started off really slow. I think they were over 0 of 3 during that really slow start. So they finished the game 8 of 14. That's over 50%. If they can shoot and have some guys knock down some threes, they were 5 of 8 in the second half. That's why they were able to come back in this game. So that was a positive. Their zone defense, they don't use it much, but it looked really good in this game. There were a couple of times where they left the middle open and Dryhorn was able to make some shots, and he's killed USC in both the games they played. But some positive signs from that. If they want to make that switch on teams, if they can carry over what they showed in this game, I think that's something they could use in the NCAA tournament to mix up their defense a little bit. And like I said a little bit earlier, one of the biggest things in the NCAA tournament is point guard play, taking care of the basketball. That initial stretch, 8 turnovers. While they struggled to shoot the ball, they also were giving the ball away. The rest of the game, only 3 turnovers. I know at least one of them was an offensive foul on Ethan Anderson. So they were taking care of the basketball. If they can continue that, they've got a great chance to be able to play and make a little bit of some noise in the March Madness tournament starting next weekend.
Now, you mentioned Evan Mobley, kind of getting the feel of USC's fans, the reactions to this game. I feel like they're a little bit more angry than you are, which makes sense. Your media shotgun. But I think the sentiment is, hey, if you have a guy like Evan Mobley, why aren't you at least getting into the finals of the Pac-12 tournament? Do you feel like fans are justified with that take?
I mean, it's an opportunity missed out. And, a big part of it, I mean, it's an opportunity because you wouldn't be playing Oregon. You wouldn't be playing the top seed. You'd be playing the number 5 seed, Oregon State. You would feel good about your chances going into that, a team that you've beat this season. So, it was a great opportunity for USC to get that first Pac-12 title since 2009, I believe it was, and only their second one ever. So it does feel like a missed opportunity in that regard. Again, they just can't get over the hump against Colorado. They can't get over the hump against McKinley Wright. He's just a dynamic playmaker, and he creates everything on that offense for them. He gets in the lane and scores for himself, but he also gets in the lane and feeds everyone else. Their three-point shooting was fantastic again in this game. Colorado was 12 of 24. I mean, if you knock down 12 threes, you're going to win pretty much any game. The fact that USC was right there at the end tells you, a little bit about their character coming back from 15 points down, despite a team continuing to shoot really well in the game. McKinley Wright sets all that stuff up. And this is kind of the thing. Somebody asked, why can't you get over the Colorado hump? That's 7 straight that Colorado's won. And in the infield, I don't know if he's reading my post on the P or what, but he kind of echoed what I had written a couple weeks ago when someone asked a similar question to me, or maybe it was even on a podcast, was that why can't they beat Colorado? And it's McKinley Wright. When USC had Jordan McLaughlin, they won. I think they were undefeated against Colorado his sophomore, junior, and senior years. Now they have an elite point guard. And that's been the difference, especially in a game like tonight where it's a very close game. An elite point guard can take you a long way into college basketball. And McKinley Wright was able to do that tonight. He was the difference maker for them. He had 24 points. He made his first 4 threes, even though he's not a great 3-point shooter. So he set up everything and created for them as well. And he created that last shot, actually. I mean, the last putback dunk, his miss, even though, he didn't make the shot, he brought Evan Mobley out to the 3-point line, which left the rim unprotected. And that was where Deshaun Schwartz was able to fly in there and get the putback dunk to be able to put Colorado over the top.
Now, looking ahead, Shotgun Selection Sunday is just around the corner. What is your prediction for USC, given that they did lose this game tonight?
Yeah, it's again another missed opportunity for the team. Talk about all the small things that can send you home in March. Well, this is another missed opportunity to improve that seed line, missed opportunity to get into the Pac-12 tournament championship, missed opportunity to potentially win that against a number 5 seed, missed opportunities along the way. Another quad one game that could have really boosted their resume, potentially pushed them up to a 4 seed, maybe. They were hovering around a 5 seed. They were 6 seed in most of the brackets that I looked at today. They would have pushed up to a 5 if they would have won the championship. Maybe they move up to a 4. Right now, you're sitting around 6, and I think they'll probably stay there. They might slide down to a 7. Just depends on, I think it's going to depend a little bit on, some of the COVID protocols that other teams, that are actually in front of them, like Kansas and Virginia, that, had to pull out of their conference tournaments. I think those type of things will factor in. If those teams aren't able to go, you bump up a little bit. So we'll see where they go. There's somewhere between a 5 and 7 right now. And, it's going to be more than which seed they are right now is going to be who they play and who they could potentially play. If they're a 6, a 5 or a 6, I believe both a 5 and a 6, they could play one of the first 4 teams, which means you don't find out who you're playing until Tuesday night, which is a little bit more difficult to prepare for. But you also get a team that is a little bit more tired, having played 2 days earlier. So there's some positives and negatives from that. We'll see where USC kind of fits. Sunday will be an interesting day just to see where they line up, and everyone's going to be in Indianapolis. So it doesn't matter which bracket you're actually in. It just matters who you're playing in that bracket. You're not traveling across the country or anything like you normally would be. So you're not hoping for, I'd rather be in the Midwest bracket or the East bracket. It's all going to be the same. Everything's going to be in Indianapolis. So a little bit different this year. It's just going to be looking at those matchups across the board. I want to avoid the Baylor. I want to avoid the Gonzaga bracket. That's what USC is going to be clamoring for, because if they do make a run, you want to avoid those 2 teams because they have been just fantastic all season. So I think that's the biggest thing to look for the potential of making a run. Now, they've got to take care of business in those first couple games before they can even worry about any of those teams that are ahead of them in the seeding. But, there's a lot to look forward to on Sunday. The fact that this team is 22-7, they a fantastic season. Unfortunately for them, it's a missed opportunity, like I said, that they could have potentially gotten to the Pac-12 championship and potentially taken that title.
Alrighty, Shotgun. Any final thoughts from Vegas before we wrap this one up?
One small thing that I wanted to note is that if you look at the minutes played, the starters are playing a ton of minutes. You're seeing that it's a 6-man rotation for the most part, maybe a 7-man. Chavez Goodwin, I think he played around 10 minutes this game. Ethan Anderson's coming off the bench. He's a big part of the rotation along with the 5 starters. But Max Agmont-Polo, Noah Bauman, those guys played minimal minutes in this, 5 or 6 minutes at most. Bauman came in and had a big 3 at the end of the first half to give him a little momentum going into the break. If they could get him involved, that'd be great to have an extra shooter available. But the rotation is shrinking, and I think you'll see that even more when they get the NCAA tournament and they have that extra day in between. You're not going to see Max Agmont-Polo playing 25 minutes in a game. You're not going to see Bauman coming in playing 20. You're not going to see Reese Dixon-Water coming in. So it's going to be up to those 6 or 7 guys at the front. They need those guys to step up. They need Taj Edey to be a shooter. They need the Mobley brothers to be dominant down low. That means Isaiah's got to make some of those 2-pointers. They need Isaiah White to bring that intensity and energy. They need Drew Peterson to be that jack of all trades. So, it's going to be interesting how they perform down the stretch, but it's going to be based on those 7 guys. That rotation is really shrinking right now.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for USC. 72-70 loss to Colorado in the Pac-12 tournament. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.